Hello, hello. What is going on, everybody? And welcome to another episode of the Undercovers podcast. I am here with Paul. We are not going to be joined tonight by Ben. He is feeling a little under the weather. So it will be just the two of us tonight. It'll basically kind of be like almost like an edition of Connor's Takes, almost,
It would
except
be, yeah.
yes, except this isn't technically Connor's takes. We have a whole list of topics that we want to go over and we want to talk about. And yes,
Absolutely.
if anybody happens to be coming here from my stream last night and my live commentary of the NASCAR race at Gateway, I'm still exhausted. I promise. That was a wild night and I'm still living it up. Um Anyway, though, that's not what this is about entirely. Make sure I didn't lose you, Paul. Am I
Oh, you're good. I'm here.
okay, cool. No, because my computer on my end locked up, so I just wanted to make sure that everything's still good on the StreamYard end. But
Yeah, we're good.
anyway, let's go ahead and dive right into the show. We got a lot planned tonight and we got a fun one in store. Um how do we want to begin this one, Paul? Do you want to take the first topic? I'd pull it up, but I already
Sure.
forgot what it was. Oh, yeah, no,
Yeah,
wait,
I'll
wait,
take the
wait.
first
Aren't
topic.
we talking about, who's more likely to be traded when it comes to Joe Burrow or T. Higgins? Or, T. Higgins or yeah, Joe Burrow's getting traded. You heard it here first. But, no, you were talking about,
Brandon Ayuk and T. Higgins. Which one's most likely to be traded?
yeah, well, T. Higgins actually got extended. I don't know if you saw that or not, but
One
it is
year.
yes, it is official. T. Higgins has signed a new one-year deal with the Cincinnati Bengals. So your question is pretty much moot point by now. Um, so that answers that. Maybe T. Higgins gets traded next year, but I don't see it. At the moment, though, I still believe Brandon Ayuk is going to be traded
Mhm.
at some point. I don't know if it's going to be now or if it's going to be in maybe a few months, maybe mid-season. I don't know, but either way, I still believe he's going to be traded at some point in the near future because it's very obvious he is not happy with his time in I almost said Carolina. What am I thinking of right now? What am I thinking of? Christian McCaffrey? No, he's very unhappy with his time right now in San Francisco,
Mhm.
and I definitely think that they are going to want to move on and figure out how to appease Brandon Ayuk and how to get the most out of any kind of trade they might make with a certain team. The Bills. I didn't say that. Did I say that? I didn't. Paul, did I say
I
that?
heard nothing.
No, I didn't hear anything either. I didn't say nothing.
The argument I guess you could say with T. Higgins is like if the my goodness, I almost got your Panthers vibe here. The Bengals like completely bottom out this year, which I don't
What?
see. You know, they completely bottom out. They're 5-6 win team, and
No.
they end up then they have end up riding ship and trading some players away to try to fix whatever happened because they just bottomed out. But realistically, I don't see the Bengals as completely falling apart. So I don't see T. Higgins move this offseason or like at a trade deadline thing. But I could definitely see him maybe after next year, after this season, you know, those trade rumors again ramp up again. But then, it's, I mean, the easy answer here is Brandon Ayuk. I mean,
Hmm.
you just mentioned he's not happy in San Francisco. There's money. There's the argument over money. He's 26 years old. His market value is right now at $26.5 million according to Spot Track.
Oh.
So and the and the and the 49ers don't have that money. They're going to be the third lowest in cap space next year. They're right now, according to Spot Track, their projected salary cap for next season is a negative 23 million. They have 14 free agents in 2024. I mean, sorry, after 2024, because after so that'd be 2026 season. Entering the 2026 season, that includes their quarterback, Brock Purdy, George Kittle, Debo Samuel, and Kyle's huge check. That's in 2026. This offseason, they have to pay Cam Ward. They have to pay uh Ward and Greenlaw. I would assume both of those will be hefty deals. I mean, Ward probably anywhere from 11 to 13 million a year, and Greenlaw, I mean, a young stud at linebacker, you're probably looking at 13 to 17 million dollars, per season for Greenlaw. You know, I was doing some prep work for this. I mean, Greenlaw could probably get the Patrick Green type of deal, but just maybe a little bit more money. So Brandon Ayuk, 26 years old, and there's still another year or two left on Debo's deal. If I'm the 49ers right now, I'm kind of like, I don't know. Because you either trade Debo, who can give you a little bit more than Ayuk, but he's also older, or do you stick with the young, talented receiver in Ayuk and you have to pay him a hefty amount of money? I don't think the 49ers would be right now willing to pay, you know, about $20 million a year for Brandon Ayuk.
I mean, I'd rather pay Brandon Ayuk than Debo Samuel. If you ask me,
I
I'd rather stay younger as a team, but if he's not happy, he's not happy, and you're going to have to cut your losses at some point or another. But I definitely think he'll be traded soon, hopefully to the Bills,
That would be
because that
great,
would just make this offense absolutely lethal without hopefully changing too much of the game plan regarding the usage of Dalton Kincaid and
Ugh,
James Cook, among others. But I will now take the next topic because
mhm.
it's actually kind of funny that you put this topic in this show, seeing as I
I think
literally
we're gonna
discussed
have
it.
2 conflicting points here. I
Oh,
think I know one way
are
you're
we?
going to go, but I think I'm going to go the other way. But
Okay. Okay. So,
but you go first.
I will. I will. So the topic of discussion is, will the Pittsburgh Steelers regret extending Mike Tomlin as head coach? I'm solely convinced, Paul, that you got this topic inspiration just because you watched my football segment on my last episode of This Week in
Mhm.
Motorsports, because I literally talked about this in the final 15 minutes of my last episode. And to make it very brief, because I already went into full detail over on my solo show at that Florida Guy 5 on YouTube, the answer is no. As long as Mike Tomlin remains in Pittsburgh, you could literally put in, oh, wait, they already had Mitch Trubisky at quarterback. You could literally put in a guy like Easton Stick. You could put in a guy like, let me look at the backup list really quickly. You could put in a guy like Hendon Hooker, who hasn't even taken an NFL snap yet. You could put in Sean Clifford, the current backup quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, or you could even put in Mac freaking Jones, and this team is still going to finish 9-8 under Mike Tomlin's coaching and leadership. Will they make the playoffs? Who knows? But um, will they win a playoff game? Most likely not. You just barely make the playoffs as the seventh seed. You're going to usually get destroyed most of the time, unless you're Dallas, in which case you get destroyed. But no, as long as Mike Tomlin is the Steelers head coach, they're going to remain in playoff contention all the way until the very, very end, because you know that man hates to lose. Last time the Pittsburgh Steelers were ever in danger of theoretically tanking, they traded away their first round pick to make sure they didn't tank, and they wound up finishing 8-8 that year. That was 2019. Granted, they did lose their last two games to go from 8-6 in prime playoff contention to 8-8 and out of the playoffs. But at the end of the day, they were still in it. And that was literally thanks to Mike Tomlin, displaying leadership capabilities when Ben Roethlisberger went down with the Tommy John surgery that year. But that's a whole other topic of discussion. At the moment, though, it's like I said, I discussed that last week. Um, no, they won't regret it. Paul, I imagine you're about to say they're going to regret it. And I want to
Mhm.
know why you think that, if you think that.
Well, I believe the contract year was a 3-year extension to Mike Tomlin, who that as in you said,
That is
as
not a
in
Dave Blaney background. That is literally Ryan Blaney from last night's win at Iowa. I do this all the time, Lee. I change my background of the last race winner consistently unless I'm just bored with it, and then I'll go with a Kyle Larson background. It's just that's how I roll. That's how I
but
do.
back to Mike Tomlin here.
Goat.
They're always like you said, they're always going to be 9-8. They're always just going to be 9-8, 10-7. For the next for however long as Mike Tomlin is head coach. But is that really, Pittsburgh Steelers' identity? Obviously, with Mike Tomlin as head coach,
Oh my
that's what it
god.
has been. But
You,
the
you,
Steelers are 6-time Super Bowl champions. They won one with Mike Tomlin in 2008. They haven't been to the Super Bowl since 2010
stop
with
it.
Mike Tomlin as head coach. You look at their last 3 playoff games at Buffalo, at KC, versus the Cleveland Browns. They gave up 31 to Buffalo, 42 to KC, and 48 to Baker Mayfield's Browns.
Do not remind me.
And
They gave up 28 points in one quarter, Paul. 28.
and that's where I'm going. A team that's built around defense. Mike Tomlin's defense can't score anything on offense. That's besides the point. Because he doesn't control the offense, but he controls the defense. And you're giving up 31, 42, and 48 in your last three playoff games, and haven't been to the Super Bowl since 2010. Is that really
Indeed.
what the Pittsburgh Steelers wants? You know, was it more of because they wanted Mike Tomlin as their coach, or Mike Tomlin just wanted to stay because he couldn't get anything elsewhere? Because you see, there's Bill Belichick, who's still out there. Great head coach, no job. Mike Vrabel out there. I expect him to get one next offseason, but great coach, still no job.
That was kind of baffling, honestly. Like, genuinely. I don't know how Mike Vrabel doesn't have a job by now, but I don't know how many jobs are honestly still available in the league. I mean,
Right.
plenty. There can't be that many if Mike Vrabel still doesn't have a job. But
Hmm.
um, what's actually kind of funny is you did say it, Paul. You basically said the antithesis to my statement. Obviously, you want to remain in playoff contention, but you're right. They haven't won a playoff game since 2016. They won 3 playoff games, 2 playoff games that year. I'm trying to remember because they beat I forget who they beat in the
Talking about
wild
the
card round.
2020 season.
No, talking about the last time that Mike Tomlin won a playoff game was 2016. I forget who they beat.
Is
They
that?
beat the Dolphins. They beat the Dolphins in the wild
Mhm.
card round with Matt Moore as your starting quarterback. That's never going to
Yep.
go well. They beat the Kansas City Chiefs. 99% of Chiefs fans would gasp at that because they have no earthly idea that this team existed before Patrick Mahomes came around. They lost. The Chiefs lost because they allowed Chris Boswell to kick all the field goals on them. And ever since that game against the Chiefs, they got beat by the Patriots and have not won a playoff game since. And they've been to the playoffs multiple times. 2017, they had the first round bye, got bodied by the Jaguars on home turf.
Yep.
2018, they missed the playoffs in one of the worst collapses I think I've ever seen in my entire time of watching the NFL. 2019, lost their last 2, missed the playoffs. 2020, started 11-0, finished 12-4, and got bodied by Baker Mayfield, like you said.
Hmm.
2021, they missed the playoffs on tiebreaker with the Miami Dolphins. Wait, yeah, I think it was 21. I always get that one and 22 mixed up. But no, 21. They made the playoffs because they went 9-7-1 that year. got absolutely bodied by Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. Never stood a chance in that game. 2022 missed the playoffs on tiebreaker due to Miami. The literal fact is that Noah Igmahogany cost the Steelers a shot at the playoffs that year. Is that just not a wild thing to say in the year of our Lord 2024? So there's that. And then last year, as we know, seventh seed, 10-7 with a rotating carousel at quarterback, it got absolutely bodied by the Bills in Orchard Park. We all knew it was coming, though. No TJ Watt, no chance. That team lives and dies by TJ Watt. It's literally like Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks, which that game will start pretty soon. Hopefully, Dallas does not give us a disgusting title for the Boston Celtics, but that's irrelevant right now. Moving on. You said it, though. Those teams have underachieved in the playoffs consistently. And by consistently, I do mean consistently. Like
Mhm.
that 2017 team had way too much talent to lose in the way they did to Jacksonville with Blake Bortles as your quarterback. Blake
Yeah.
Bortles. That's disgusting. I still can't believe they lost that game, and that's years later. And 2018, that was one of the most talented teams they ever put together in the modern era. Missed the playoffs, and Antonio Brown turned into a nutcase. Kind of like, kind of like how I don't want to be like, yeah, Stephon Diggs is doing the same, but Stephon's on that track. He just hasn't had a mental breakdown yet. But we'll see what he does in Houston because I bet it's coming. But anyway, that was that. I could see why you'd say that, but no, at the end of the day, I'd rather be consistently in playoff contention than circling the drain with the bottom feeders of the league, constantly hoping that your top 5 draft picks pan out every single year.
Do
I
you
don't believe in the loser's mentality, and neither do the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's not the Stiller way. By the way, you're going to get a lot of angry Yidzers flooding in here now about talking about that playoff game. Oh, but TJ
well,
Watt was hurt. You were losing
you
regardless. Shut
gotta
up. Go back to Permani Bros.
they I've the flash here's Bill Belichick, at the end, the questions after that one after before last season in 2023, and talking about like, what does a Bill Belichick team look like this season? Sorry, 2020, from 2022 to 2023, they bottomed out in 2023. Now he's no longer their head coach. This kind of has a similar feel to it, you know, with the Steelers and Mike Tomlin. Like, they didn't know if they really wanted to keep him, but Mike Tomlin, good for him. I commend him for his loyalty to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean,
Hmm.
not often you see head coach that says, I'm going to stick here. I'm going to be the head coach for another season or two. But kind of also has that feel, you know, Russell Wilson coming off a decent season. Then before that, he just completely, bottomed out in the first year under Sean Payne. What kind of Russell Wilson are you getting? Obviously, that's better than Mason Rudolph that what you had last year. But
And Kenny Pickett.
what are the Steelers going to look like at quarterback may determine if they are a 9-8 team, or this year they're a 6-11 team.
Not going to happen. And I think the reason that I say it's not going to happen, let me actually really quickly, while you're on this topic, I'm going to pull up their schedule and sneeze. God bless. All right. Anyway, I also just realized I
Connor,
missed the.
do you wanna
Should have said bless
pick the
me.
Steelers? I'm kind of interested in
Should have been
where
Quinn.
you have the Steelers at this moment.
I should have done the Quinn and Williams thing right there and said bless me. All right. Anyway, hang on. Actually, you know what? You have given me an idea. I will. All right. Hang on. Let me pull up their schedule really quickly. I
And
want to
then we'll
make
go into
sure.
Bills talk right after this.
Yes,
I'm
absolutely.
interested in
We
where you
got a
have
lot
your
of Bills
mind.
talk. All right. So they've got a fairly interesting schedule, but I actually think they've got a couple of games that they're absolutely going to shock the world and win, but they also, in turn, will have those games that they are going to shock the world and lose. And those will be about midway through the season, maybe later in the season. But anyway, I actually think this team, so they start out with the Atlanta Falcons and Denver Broncos on the road. I think depending on what we have with Russell Wilson, neither of those games could. I would give the edge to Pittsburgh in both games just because if TJ Watt and the defense is healthy, they're going to absolutely destroy the poor rookie quarterback if Bo Nix starts in Denver. But
Mhm.
there's that. And they play the Chargers at home for their home opener. I think as long as they can rush Herbert, I think they could actually stand a fair chance of winning this game, just as long as Russell Wilson cooks up touchdowns and not turnovers.
So do you have them 3-0 in in their first 3 games?
Potentially 2-1. I think 2-1 would probably be the safer bet. I just don't know how the Chargers as a team are going to meld right away when they start because it's a new breed of team. They've got
Mhm.
a new head coach in Jim Harbaugh. They just signed Lad McConkey to his rookie deal, which is the most guaranteed money that has ever been given to a 35th overall pick, by the way. I don't know if you knew that or not. I think you,
No.
but I
Alright, let's
think,
go into the next 3. They're
yeah,
so they're
they
2
could
and they're 2 and 1 heading
just give
to
them
at
2-1.
Colts, then they have the Cowboys, and then they have the Raiders. Where do they go
So
in the next 3?
here's the fun part. So they're going to beat Indianapolis. They own Indianapolis. Look at their historical records against each other. Pittsburgh owns Indianapolis. Last year was a fluke. They will. I don't know about how Dallas will look. They probably will lose to Dallas, and this is probably where you're going to be like, "What am I on?" They're going to lose to the Raiders because they're playing in Vegas, and whenever the Raiders are a combination of three things: bad, at home, and the Steelers have some talent on the team, the Raiders beat them every single time. Terrell Pryor's ghost
Interesting.
still haunts my nightmares. So
Alright,
does
so they're 3-3 after their
so,
first 6.
so does Chris Boswell's missed kick against that 2-win Raiders team in 2018. Ugh. Anyway, so their next three games: Jets, Giants, Commanders. This is actually going to be a bit of a fun one. I think they beat the Jets. I
Okay.
genuinely think I think they beat the Jets. They're in. This is actually a primetime matchup.
It is.
I,
Their next
I
2 are prime times.
I think they beat the Jets. I think they beat the Giants, but that just depends on how the Giants are. I don't really know if the Giants are going to be that bad, but we'll find out. Like, I give that one a 50-50, depending on how bad the Giants are going to be at this point in the season. And then the Washington Commanders, I'm going to say it, they're going to lose to the Washington Commanders.
What?
Yeah, they're
Okay.
gonna lose. The Commanders are going to be bad. We all know that. They're a young team. Jaden Daniels will still need some time to adjust to the NFL. And this is
S
still going to be I bet you that's gonna be Jaden
Okay.
Daniels' game where everybody's like, wow, this kid's good. Because
Now
this is
this
just
is the
Pittsburgh.
stretch of the season where I'm gonna say they lose out.
Oh, you think they lose out.
Lose out.
How do you
They
not
lose out.
know how oh, wait, no, it's fine, actually. You don't know the power and the potency of AFC North football, so I'll give
I
you a
mean,
pass.
could they possibly pick up 1 win? Sure. Could they pick up 2? Sure. But this is the stretch of the season. You have them at 5-4 right now. Look at the remaining schedule. You think about it, and then you come back with me with the remaining record, and then we'll add the totals here because at this point, I only could see the Steelers having 7 wins at most
Seven.
at 5-4 after 9 games.
Alright. Alright, but anyway, we're gonna move on. So, they're playing the Ravens at home.
Yes.
This is a dub. They're gonna absolutely thrash them. Lamar Jackson has his worst games against Pittsburgh. He is going to be thrashed by the Steel Curtain. So they're going to win this game. They're going to beat the Browns. They own the Browns. I don't care what that playoff game says. They own the Browns. They're going to beat the Bengals. They're actually going to sweep the Browns, as a matter of fact. They're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 0
4-0. Okay.
against the AFC North in that stretch. Going at me. They're going to lose to Philadelphia. They're going to lose to Baltimore again on that Saturday. That's a Saturday game at 4:30. Why? Why is that a thing? Anyway, they're gonna lose that game to Baltimore. This is when Baltimore is gonna try to make their push. This is this is where they're making their push for the playoffs. They're gonna
Mhm.
lose to Kansas City, obviously, and they're going to beat Cincinnati at home in Week 18 to finish it out. So
10-7.
10 and
I don't
7.
know.
Let me cook.
Uh,
10 and 7.
I still don't agree with you, but
10 and 7, and they make the playoffs over the Dolphins. They are better.
we can have this debate. We can have this debate on Connor's sakes this week.
Yes. I'm tired of Steelers debates, Paul. Why are you dragging me into so many Steelers debates?
Well,
I
because
feel
I
like
don't think 10-7
sir,
seems delusional.
I am not delusional. I would, I used to be a Yinzer, so that's
Yeah,
probably where you think I'm getting this from. But I know
a little biased.
it's not bias. It is. I know how AFC North football works, sir.
Right. I mean,
I've known for years, but we have Bills
gotta have
topics
a
to
quarterback
discuss.
for
I'd
that too.
rather discuss the better team right now and the best
Yeah,
team
let's
right
discuss
now
them.
and the GOAT team and everything else because Big Dubs. I'm wearing his
Big
jersey. I
dubs.
love that man. Anyway, let's jump into our first Bills topic of the evening, which is
I
what
have
does
it right here.
what does a successful season for Von Miller look like? Paul, I'm going to let you answer this more detailed, but I will start
Hmm.
off the discussion by giving a short and sweet answer. Just be on the field.
Be on the field.
Be on the
Yeah,
field.
yeah. He didn't start games last year. He actually had a 0 in that category,
See?
including his sack category as well. Yeah, he didn't start one single game last year. He appeared in 12.
See? Just be on the field. That's all I ask.
So he appeared in 12. Obviously, he's coming off a his second ACL tear. Glad you had me doing this in a little bit more detail because I wrote down a couple of different, you know, I'm going to compare him to two players that are about around his age. Maybe not coming off the ACL injury, but in their final two seasons as, Von Miller enters his age 35 season. You know, Fletcher Cox and Nakadam Sue. I completely
Oh my
butchered that
God.
first name, but we're going to draw the outline here, and where I kind of feel like where what Von Miller can do coming off an ACL injury. Full off season now. He's not really rehabbing anything, and you know he had that part of the season where he didn't start any games and he was an enforcer last year. At points, he was getting pressures, but he couldn't get sacks. So Fletcher Cox in his last two seasons, in 2022, he had 7 sacks, and in 2023, which was his final season last year, he had 5 sacks. I think that's pretty reasonable, for a guy who was up in the 30s. And then Sue,
Perhaps.
in his last 3 seasons, he didn't play last season, but in 2022, that's where you kind of see like Sue's career is probably over at this point because he only had 1 sack. And then 2020 and 2021, he had 6 sacks,
Freaking ankle
totaling
stepper.
for. So where kind of I feel like a successful season looks like for Von Miller. In 11 games, he didn't in 11 games before he got hurt in 2022 season, he was 2 sacks away from 10 sacks. So, you say he played the remaining 6 games of that season. You could probably say he's an 11 to maybe 13 sack guy, and that was his age, what, 33 season? Because he's
Mhm.
entering his age 35 season. So, I mean, 11 sacks as a 33-year-old is pretty darn good for his age and for that contract that you signed him to.
Mhm.
Last year, he only appeared in 12 games. He didn't start any games. But I really feel, realistically, coming off the injury last year, full off season this year, 5 to 7 sacks is a reasonable and realistic number. But for me to say to have a really good season or a successful season, 8 to 10 sacks is a good season because you're paying him you're paying him all that money. And before his injury, his age 33 season, he had 8 sacks, too shy of a double-digit sack season. So 8 to 10, I think, is a good season. 5 to 7 is reasonable.
All right. I'll give you that one. I actually, as long as he's on the field and terrorizing offensive lines, I really think that that's just all we can ask for out of Von Miller at this point. Like,
More like pressures, not getting home, or do you like, or do
well,
get home maybe a few times, but
yeah,
be the
well,
enforcer?
obviously, yeah, get home. I mean, against weaker offensive lines, eat, man, eat, get home, get the quarterback sacks because we are going to need them against some of these tougher teams that we're facing coming up, in our schedule. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, we're going against some good offensive lines. Against those teams, then just get pressure. All you got to do
Yeah,
is just get pressure because, like, I mean, we play the 49ers this year. Thankfully, I believe we're
absolutely.
playing them at home in Buffalo. Just get pressure on Brock Purdy. That's all we got. That's all you got to do, man. Just get pressure on him and hopefully get Brock Purdy a little more uncomfortable in the pocket. But um, just like I said, get pressure. That's literally all that I would ask from a guy like Von Miller at this point. We got a lot of other guys like Ed Oliver, Greg Rousseau, all of them for sacks. AJ Epinesa, like they will eat. Matt Milano, they will eat in the sack category. Let's just get Von Miller on the field and applying the pressure to open the lanes up.
Mhm. And I agree. I think for a guy that's 35 years of age, I you could say pressures are more important than sacks. Obviously sacks are important, you know, but maybe at this point, Bills are saying, if you can get pressures, open up a gap for maybe Greg Rousseau or AJ Epinesa or even Ed Oliver to get home, that would be beneficial to the Bills. For
Mhm,
me, watching Von Miller, paying him all that money, sacks become more important than pressures, but both of them combined should make a good season for Von Miller. And 5 to 7, I say it's reasonable. Say he has 5 to 7 sacks this season, and he's the total wreck. He doesn't get home, but he's creating pressure, and pressures turn into turnovers for your defense, and that allows Josh Allen and the offense to get onto the field and plus territory. I'm like, hey, sure, 5 to 7 sacks is a good season. You know,
mhm,
is that would categorize as a good season because there's pressures and then he's creating turnovers. The pressures are creating some turnovers. Say he's not really creating much pressures, but he's getting home. Okay, 8 to 10 becomes a good season. It kind of really depends in a way. It depends how you look at this. Where he is, how old he is, and kind of what happens during the season. Because 5 to 7, like I said, 5 to 7 sacks, reasonable. But if he's adding more to that, like turnovers and stuff like that, 5 to 7 becomes a good season for a 35-year-old.
mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. How about you keep cooking, Paul? Uh, by that I mean, how about you keep cooking with our next topic because what we've kind of gotten everything out that needed to be said about Von Miller. So the next topic that we actually had on the list was Ben was supposed to take it, but he is a little under the weather, so he's not here. So what will it take, Paul, for the Bills to repeat as AFC East champions for the fifth consecutive year? Let's hear it.
Man, I have a lot of interesting things to say about the next one too that we're about to do, but this one kind of
Do
correlates
you?
to what I'm going to say in the next topic too. But in order for the Bills to 5-peat in the AFC East, it really comes down to winning your home games. Win the games that you can at home. I mean, the Bills were 7-1 in home games last year. They lost the home game because they had to go play in London, and they lost that one. I'm not going to count the London game as a home game. I'm going to only count home games at Highmark Stadium. They were 7-1 in those games. But the Bills last year lost 2 important games on the road. They lost at Philly and they lost at Cincinnati last year.
Oh,
And,
jeez.
you remember that the Cincinnati game, was important, but I would say the most important of the 2 was that Philly game. You had the lead, you lost it, and you lost in overtime. See, it
Yeah.
was it was the Billsiest of all Billsiest losses. But I
Oh,
wanna
what a way
flip
to say it.
this onto the Chargers win, because you have to win the gimme games, and they almost lost the Easton Stick in LA. If the Bills lose that game against the Chargers, the final 2 games, New England and Miami, become way much more critical than what they already were.
Hmm. You've given me
Just
a thought.
you have to win those important gimme games. And I don't think the Bills really have many like gimme games on their schedule this year. You could say New England, but you you lost to New England last year at New England. That was a give me game, but no divisional game is a give me game. You have Arizona week 1. I still think the Bills should win by at least 2 to 3 scores against Arizona week
Good
1,
lord.
but they should be able to. But Tennessee at home,
Nah, it's
I don't think
Tennessee.
you can I don't think you can run over Tennessee as you did 2 couple seasons ago.
We're not Miami.
That's
Yes, we
a
can.
different that's that's kind of feels like a mid-season, sleeper game. You're not really looking at it. Like the Bills should win this, but it could end up tripping up the Bills in what could be in an important game, depending how the season runs out. Because you got a stretch between week 11 to week 15 where you had the Chiefs, 49ers, and Lions, 2 of them at home, 1 on the road. It's the Bills are going to have to win the important games at home, on the road, and have a good record in the divisional to win in the division games to 5 Pete this year. I think this is going to be the hardest Pete the Bills are going to have to face this season. I think it's the hardest.
Oh, for
Do you
sure.
agree?
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Like, this is definitely going to be quite the season, but at the end of the day, we can still do it. I still have a lot of faith in the team to be able to come back and at least win this division because let's be completely honest, the schedule itself for the Buffalo Bills might not be the biggest gimme, but this
Mhm.
division certainly seems that way. Do you really think the New York Jets with Aaron Rodgers getting older is going to be that much of a threat? I mean, I always have to look at it that way, but
Mhm.
it's still the Jets. They're going to find a way to foobar that exponentially, and the Dolphins are going to fall apart in at December when it gets cold.
Mhm.
We all know that. So who knows what's going to happen? I actually think that we've got a fair bit of. I think we got a fair bit of leeway when it comes to the division, though. But that is that topic. I definitely think that it's not going to take as much personally, but you said the bit about the gimme games. I swear, gimme games are the ones that I mean, yeah, there's the whole any given Sunday diatribe, which is very important to remember. Like you can always lose any given game if the circumstances are, not in your favor. But at the end of the day, you got to be able to take advantage of the games that you are, up in. Like that Eagles game last year that they realistically could have won, or the Patriots game that they probably should have won. But
They should have won that game.
I'm not going to reopen old wounds with that one. Um, and that's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
Win the gimme games is what you have to
you
do.
have
If
to.
you are favored by double digits, no one's expecting you. No fan is going to. Well, a lot will, but the intelligent fans will not expect you to win by double digits. Just win the game.
Just like the Los Angeles game, that was
Yeah,
too close
you
for
won,
comfort.
but you
I mean,
won.
that was a 2-point game, but we
Yep, but
won.
you still won. At the end of the day, you have to you have to take the punches and come back stronger the next week. That's
Mhm.
just something that you have to
Absolutely.
remember. That's just something that you have to remember as a fan. You might win ugly, but even if you win ugly, you still won. So you have to make sure that going forward, you just tighten up. And
Yeah.
we'll be, I mean, when we actually get into the NFL season, I'll be saying a lot more about this kind of stuff as it goes on. But at the moment, we have even more Bills topics that we want to make sure we discuss. So this was actually supposed to be my topic, and I think I will take it because this is a fairly interesting one.
Yeah, I'll give it to
S-
you.
All right,
And
yeah,
th this is an
give it.
interesting one. I think this would be also interesting. If Ben was here, this would be a fun three-way conversation, but it's okay. We'll have a two-way conversation here about
Hmm.
the Bills head coach, Sean McDermott. That name, at certain points of the season will be thrown around in many different ways. But in terms of Buffalo Bills 2024 season expectations, Sean McDermott must lead the Bills to where to make this season a success? How far does Sean McDermott have to take this team?
With the amount of expectations on this team right now,
Yes.
just make the playoffs, just win the division.
Just
I mean, look at how this team is compared to Bills teams in the past, right? Bills teams in the past, the one in 2020 made the AFC Championship game. I feel like when you had a better version of Stephon Diggs and you had a healthier defense, there was a lot more expectations on the team. But now this year, you don't really have that many expectations just from the public standpoint, per se.
Mhm.
You know, everybody thinks that getting rid of Stephon Diggs was the worst thing that the Buffalo Bills could have ever done. Spoiler alert, it wasn't.
No, it was.
And everybody's like, "Oh, well, they're not gonna. They have nobody to throw the ball to when they have no earthly idea who Khalil Shakir is." So my whole point is that as Bills fans, we know what this team is capable of, but looking at it from an outsider's perspective, I would say that maybe the expectation for McDermott is just simply win the division.
Mhm.
Prove that this team has what it takes to at least win the
Okay.
AFC East with Aaron Rodgers being Aaron Rodgers going on another drug induced retreat instead of being at mandatory minicamp. And then over the Dolphins, who are about to give $200 million guaranteed to a guy that can't come in clutch when it matters, and a Patriots team that's in the middle of a full rebuild that might take them a few seasons to fully get over. So at the end of the day, I would say just for the love of God, McDermott, win this division. Win this division, or at least get this team to the playoffs. That's
So,
my take.
are you
I want
kind
to.
of feel like so you're saying like the expectations are should be lower than higher?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say higher. I feel like expectations right now are actually pretty on par. Everybody is like, "Oh, they're going to win like 9 games." Nah, they're not going to. They're not going to win 9 games. They're going to be at worst. I'd say this team is probably about a 10-7 team. But we're going to find out when the season starts just what this team has up its sleeve. You could look at a schedule on paper all day long, but looking at a schedule on paper is not going to translate well most of the time to when the games actually start. Like, let's just say, for instance, like look at the 49ers game right now on the schedule. You'd think that one's going to be a really tough game at the moment. But what if we're at that point in November? I believe. Let me double check. Okay, no,
Yeah,
that
I think
actually is
it's
December. Yeah, it's December
yeah,
1st.
it's a December game.
Yeah, December 1st. Say you're coming to that point in the season and San Francisco's beat up full of team injuries, and they're like, a very horrible team because they're playing nothing but backups. I mean, that's the whole point of looking at the schedule now versus then, because this game, when it comes time for it, might not mean as much because one of the two teams could be underperforming massively due to injury, or they could both be overperforming to insane expectations. So at the moment, we don't really know. So we're going to find out just what this Bills team has come kickoff of the season. And that's really kind of where I just want to leave it at this point. I think expectations right now are fairly I think they're good enough. You know,
I s-
everybody's saying 10 and 7. Yeah, okay. You guys can keep that energy. I'll let everybody keep that 10 and 7 energy because 10 and 7 seems
expectations
accurate enough.
for Sean McDermott, I think expectations should be 11, 12 wins as usual. He's the last last four seasons, 10 plus win seasons. You know, 11 and 5, I mean, it would be 11 and 6 or 12 and 5. That's the expectation he set down. But let's take the expectation further than just winning the division because they've done it 4 straight years in a row. That's a set in stone expectation. You are required to win the division. I mean, if you don't, you won it 4 straight years. It's hard to win it 5 straight years. I mean, winning it four is hard. It's just hard to do something 4 straight times in a row, and I'll try to do it for a fifth time. It's going to be hard, but it's expected of you to do it. So that's already a set in stone expectation. The expectation that is still unchecked for me for Sean McDermott is winning the AFC championship game. It's still unchecked. I had it as an expectation last year. This team had to get to the AFC championship game and win it. They lost at home to the Chiefs, and any team had to be the Chiefs. But still, you still have to get over that hump. The Bills haven't been to this AFC championship game since the 2020 season.
Hmm.
It's the 2024 season. You haven't been there in about 3 seasons. It's time for you to get back to the AFC championship game, but this time win it. And I'm still holding Sean McDermott to that expectation. That's something the Bills have to do because they haven't done it. They won the division already. Cool. Great. Hats and a t-shirt. Wonderful. But they haven't won the AFC championship game
Hats
in a
and
long time.
shirts. I think was that Deion Dawkins that said that after the Dolphins game in that Big Dubs
Uh,
video. I think it was Dion.
I think so.
That was great. I still watch that from time to time. As a matter of fact, I actually have it saved as a file on my computer for when, like when Kyle Larson won at Sonoma last week. I posted the whole thing on my other account because that was how I was feeling.
Right. But for you to say, I mean, win the division and just make the playoffs, it feels like you're just underdoing it. To me, that feels it's underdone.
Eh,
There's more to this than just hat and a t-shirt and just get into the playoffs.
Paul, you're looking at it from a fan perspective. I'm looking at it from a team perspective. This team is definitely good enough, but it's still a lot of there's still a lot of fresh pieces that really need time to kind of get used to the offense. I mean, Keon Coleman's going to have a starting role right away. You're going to see greater snaps for Khalil Shakir. You're going to see a much greater snap count for Dalton Kincaid. This team has a lot of gelling to do. So that's kind of why the
So my
expectations on my end are
expectations are too
rather
high.
low. I think your expectations are definitely a little high, but I'm going to let you roll with it because that's always how we like to roll. Is the is always the wild upside, and we do love it. But it's just something that I've also learned as a fan from years and years of watching these, from years and years of watching these games. Always set your expectations just a little lower. That way, you won't be disappointed when something happens and they do wind up hitting rock bottom. Hopefully, that doesn't happen, but set your expectations low. You won't be disappointed.
I mean, if the Bills hit rock bottom, I wouldn't. The mood swings wouldn't be good. Too many times last year, you just wake up on a
Mhm.
Monday morning where you're just like, I don't want to do anything today.
Haha. Yeah, and you
I
gotta
don't
go into
even want to.
work.
I don't even want to look at Twitter because I already know what's going to happen. Don't even want to participate in group chats, but I'm still going to. Eh, Too many times last year. Too many times. But there are
Accurate.
also the good times where things are high, things are good, people are believing, and that's kind of what I want the Bills to do this year. There's a part of me that says I would agree with you, you just get into the playoffs,
Well, that's just it. You gotta
but
believe, Paul. You gotta believe.
just get in, the phrase "just get into the playoffs." It seems like it's what's the motto that's hanging in the Steelers locker room. Just get into the playoffs.
Hmm.
That seems like what's the motto. Like the Bills, I mean, with this series of success, the motto should be, yes, get into the playoffs, win the division, but there's something more that they have to uncover and check off the box because they've checked all the boxes to get to during to the Super Bowl, but they just haven't won the AFC Championship game and they haven't got a Super Bowl appearance with Sean McDermott as head coach. It
Soon.
has to be. It has to be this. I mean, if it's not this year, I wouldn't be too mad because we had that transition this season from the 20, with all the players cutting. Wouldn't be totally mad, but it would
Mhm.
leave frustration and questions on can Sean McDermott do that? Can Sean McDermott lead this team to X, Y, and Z? But that's a topic of conversation for mid of the season, toward the end of the
Mhm.
season, because we don't know those answers just yet. We're right now just getting ready for the season. But to me, those are the expectations. Win the division, 11 to 12 wins, win the AFC Championship game. But let's also talk about Keon Coleman because we love
Yep.
talking Keon Coleman.
Yes, we
We
do.
love talking Keon Coleman.
I do. I
Connor,
always do.
what does a realistic stat line look like for Keon Coleman this season?
2,000 yards. No, I'm kidding. Could you imagine?
What's the record?
But no. No, that would be a first for anybody in the NFL, over 2,000 yards. I
During
forget
your
what the
rookie season?
actual record
Man,
I forget what the actual record is. I don't think Tyreek Hill broke it last year, but he got
he did
really,
not.
really close. But,
He got close, but he
okay,
didn't
back
break it.
back on track to what I was saying. I don't think it'll be much. Maybe on the upside, he has over 1,000 yards. Maybe at the very top, he's got around a 1,200 yard season. But I just don't know how much of him they're going to want to use in the offense compared to guys like Dalton Kincaid and Khalil
Mhm,
Shakir, who I actually do believe are going to be the team's. Well, Dalton Kincaid at least is going to be the top option in my mind for the Bills offense. But again, I'm not Joe Brady. I have no idea what this man is cooking. But you've got Dalton Kincaid. You've got maybe a greater influence on the ground game with James Cook. You did also draft Ray Davis out of Kentucky. So I see maybe more usage out of your running backs, but maybe, like I said, I think anywhere from about 700 to 1,000 yards is maybe that's a good ballpark estimate.
mhm,
But at the moment, all we have is ballpark estimates because
right,
we don't really know how Joe Brady is going to use Keon Coleman in this offense. Please, just as long as it's not like Coach Norvell did at FSU, we'll be fine. We'll be just fine, I promise. As long as he does not get misused again. I mean, my God. It was annoying enough at FSU. I just hope Joe Brady doesn't repeat it here. But let's hear your takes on this one, Paul. I'm sure you're going to have a fairly interesting stat line for me here. I actually
I
went
do.
fairly reasonable, but I want to hear what you got to say. Let's hear it.
So, it was this while I was doing, some quick research on some things with Keon Coleman and a couple other wide receivers that, were prioritized in the rookie season coming straight out of college, because I would assume, you know, and what my mind thinks Keon Coleman should probably would be the number one. You could say maybe the 1B to Dalton Kincaid this season, or maybe or just slightly under, maybe just a 2 with Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir. But he's going to be a main focus in this offense. I was listening to Always Game Day in Buffalo before the show. They were talking a few things about Keon Coleman. One, he has great hands. I mean, I posted a post. I mean, two pictures, two pictures of Keon Coleman just catching ridiculously catches over his back shoulder. Those were great. He has hands like glue. That's
Yeah,
going to
that's
be a
Keon for you.
plus side to him. One thing he's struggling with is getting off the ball early. His first step. He's having some trouble with his first step. They're saying, getting off the line and going. But as he gets off the line and runs into his route, he's golden. He's good. He's a good route runner. That's something that we love. But he has to get that first good step, and to get that separation. So that's something he's going to work through for the rest of this offseason and into the season. But now into his stat line and kind of I feel like where a realistic ballpark area is 79 catches, 980 yards, 7
Woo!
touchdowns.
980
I think that
yards. All right.
I
All
think
right.
that is realistic for Keon Coleman because I'm going to compare him to 3 other wide receivers that are around his same height and his same weight but also had who also was the main target who had to be the main target for their team in the rookie season. Do I think Keon Coleman is going to be the main target? No, but he's going to be one of a few main targets for the Buffalo Bills this season, and what he's going to be one of the most important key weapons to the Bills during the during the season. I'm going to start with Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen had 71 catches, 1,460 yards, and 8 touchdowns. I don't think Keon Coleman is a 1,000-yard receiver. So I'm going to dial it down a bit to to, I think he's going to have a similar stat line to what Jamar Chase had in his rookie season, which was
Hmm.
72 catches, 866 yards, and 4 touchdowns. That I think is a realistic stat line for Keon Coleman. And then next year is that next step which is to get to 1,000 yards and 7 to 10 touchdowns. But I think he's going to be about a 980-yard wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills because I think he's going to emerge to Josh Allen's favorite wide receiver on this team. If he can get off the line, get separation, he's already a great route runner. We already know that. He's super athletic. We know that. And he can catch balls. We already know that. Fix up a few things. I think Josh Allen finds his number one target in Keon Coleman by midseason and then lights are off and everyone else with Kincaid, Samuel, and Shakir. And you're talking about top 5 offense in the league with maybe 3 guys, maybe 3, 4 guys, 850 yards plus. I'll take that.
Hmm. I could see it. That would be a very nice upside, but hmm,
Are my
yeah,
expectations too high again?
yeah, not. I mean, not in this case. I feel like you're a little more reasonable here, at least. But I think it's a lot of discussion. That's all. Bless me. It's a lot of discussion, and at the end of the day, we just need to see how they're going to set up the offense for Josh Allen, and we're going to have to see just what Josh Allen does with this new wide receiver room and all the new pass catchers and an increased usage of Dalton Kincaid, obviously. So,
I think Dalton Kincaid is at least for right now, it's probably going to be your one, I would say. I wouldn't call Shakir or Samuel your one right now.
no
Certainly
way.
not. Certainly not. I mean, Keon, I think Keon's your 1B and Kincaid is your true one here. You know, I think it goes Kincaid, a little gap, Keon, and then Shakir and Samuel kind of sharing that 2A, 2B type role, or just 2-3 with Shakir and Samuel. You know, based on kind of like what I was just writing down basic projections here, I think Shakir is probably your 2, and then you go Samuel, your 3, and then 1B Keon, 1A Kincaid. I think that's kind of how the weapons for the Buffalo Bills will be used
Mhm.
throughout the season. And then if Keon emerges as your number 1, then he's your number 1. And then Kincaid will be the elite weapon at tight end. You know, give Josh Allen a Travis Kelsey, give Josh Allen a good wide receiver. Things are rolling.
Mhm. Oh, absolutely. I'm very excited about how we got about the potential. My expectations are staying low because there's a lot of untapped potential with
Hmm.
this team, but we are going to conclude the show with that one unless you had one more thing that you wanted to talk about, Paul. Did you not?
Currently, no. You know, we're in this. We're now in. We're post mandatory minicamp. You know, mini camps and all that are over with.
Oh yeah. Time for training
Now
camp.
we're into this dead period, this 6-week dead period, and what could be the final time where we get this 6-week break until next year. Be interesting. I had this thought last night. I know we're just about to conclude, but I feel like this is worthwhile sharing. I had this thought last night,
Paul with thoughts,
because
that's dangerous.
the UFL, you know, ended their season last night on Sunday. It was a boring 25 to nothing win for
Haha.
Birmingham. It was boring. It was nothing good. It was boring. I'm going to leave it at that. I think the entire UFL season was probably a success, but it was boring. There was no elite quarterback play. There wasn't a cool there isn't a good quarterback versus quarterback matchup that you would be looking forward to. There wasn't a no Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes matchup where you're like, you have to tune in. There's nothing like that. And with the UFL, you're not getting a lot of scoring, not getting a lot of good quarterback play. You're watching just two defense have a mid off. That's what it was for most of the season. If the NFL decides to go to a enjoy to have the flip really just flip flop the entire season because right now would be the ramp up period into training camp. Like this is would be the period where most content is booming right now. Now we're into this dead period. Flip flop to next season if the NFL wants to do this. I think the UFL would benefit the UFL if they can get in, maybe with the deal with some NFL teams. Not all NFL teams, some say, hey, your rookies, they're not getting much done in this 2-month week break. Could you loan them to us for
Hmm.
a few games? There's now more talent in the UFL because it's obviously NFL talent that they're going back to the NFL, but it brings talent to the UFL. That talent from the NFL will bring eyes to the UFL and it should bring offense, it should bring more intriguing matchups, and it should help the UFL grow a little bit and kind of be not like a farm system for the NFL, but an option for NFL teams to loan maybe some of their rookies or some of their 2 to 3 year players that are in their second or third year who need some more developing time to send over to the UFL and like, hey, a 2-month loan. You go develop there. You go play games there, and you come back us, and we'll ramp you up, and then you have some game time. Then you get into training camp and preseason.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, we will roll with that. And truth be told, I'm actually getting a little more excited than I've been for the start of football season in a very
Yeah,
long time. I promise. Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be fun. And
the ramp up
maybe
to
you're
the
right.
NFL season is going to be good.
maybe they will bring in some of those UFL players just to kind of see what they've got in them, just in case, something happens to one of the starters or one of the backups.
Mhm.
But we'll have to see how that plays out when the NFL season actually gets here. But for now, did you have anything else that you wanted to add, Paul? Now that
That
you've
was about
said
it.
that. Alrighty. Well, I have said my pieces as well. So I think that for tonight, we'll go ahead and conclude the show. We all appreciate everybody that is tuning in, whether you're tuning in on Twitter, whether you're tuning in on YouTube, or whether you are listening to the audio broadcast after the fact. We appreciate the views, we appreciate the likes and the subscriptions and the
Mhm.
follows everywhere else. Um, we will be back next week, obviously, with another episode. We will be back with a Connor's Takes very soon. Probably going to talk about a few of the more interesting discussions that we had planned for tonight that we didn't quite get to. And that's all I really have to say. Make sure you are following all of us on Twitter, where we give our ball takes all the time. Some of them are better than others. At him, what Paul said on Twitter regarding Texas. But um, make sure you're also following me at my football account at the Florida Man 17 and my racing account at that Florida Guy 5. I'll be posting the next This Week in Motorsports very soon before Sunday when we're going live with the New Hampshire commentary. But that's all that we have for tonight. Big dubs and go Bills.
Go Bills.